At Thanksgiving dinner, my father set down his fork, looked me straight in thigh, and said, "Your job is to work while your sister enjoys life. If ya have a problem, there's the door." No pause, no hesitation, just the truth they'd hidden for years. Chloe did. My mother stayed silent, and in that moment, I understood I wasn't a doctor. I was their workforce. I didn't argue. I simply stood walked into the Portland rain, and made that choice that would unravel everything they depended on. Before I tell you, Therist, where are you listening from? And what would you have done in my place? My name is Amelia, and for most of my life, people assumed I was the steady one, the girl who could lift what was heavy, fix what was broken, and keep the family business breathing, even when no one else bothered to try. I grew up in a glass greenhouse on the outskirts of Portland, the kind that always looked warm from the outside, but felt cold when you were the one working inside it. While other kids spent weekends biking around their neighborhoods, I washing soil bags twice my weight, kneeling in the damp earth with pretending it was normal because my father called it built. Chloe never touched the dirt. She floated through childhood like a guest of honor. Private lessons, warm rooms, soft hands that never once lifted a crate. My parents said she had potential, as if the rest of us were just scaffolding to hold her up. I remember watching her practice dancer routines in the heated sunroom while he stood outside in the rain mud, splashing me boots, wondering why love came so easily to her and never seemed to ridge him. Even as adults, nothing changed. Chloe moved through life cushioned, supported, praised for the smallest deft, while I became the invisible gene running beneath everything. Managed inventory, checked bills, handled the repair calls no one else knew how to make. My father would pat Miss Holder like I was a dependable machine. My mother would murmur that I was strong, which was her polite way of saying I could survive neglect. The truth was simpler. I kept the family afloat because no one else would. I kept hoping that if I pushed through just one more crisis, they'd finally see me, notice the labor, but as the daughter. So, when we all sat down at that Thanksgiving table, the candles lit, the food steaming, the room filled with the very thing that should have felt safe, he thought foolishly that maybe it would be, maybe the years of carrying Fairworld would finally count for some. But the silence between us had been built long before that night, and the moment my father opened his mouth, I realized this wasn't a crack-inth relationship. It was the truth of. I felt the shift before the words even left his mouth. The way my father leaned back in his chair. The way Mimother's eyes dropped as if she already knew what was coming. Chloe twirled her wine glass, pretending she wasn't waiting for the show. And then it landed, sharp and casual, like he was commenting on the weather. Your job is to work while your sister enjoys life. For a second, I thought I'd misheard him. Thetterkey steam rose between us. The candles flickered, and every childhood memory lined up in my head, like witnesses. But he didn't blink. Every syllable had been waiting years to come out. My mother didn't. She pressed her napkin into her lap and avoided my eyes the way she always did when she agreed with something cruel, but didn't want the responsibility of saying it herself. Chloe sat straighter, smoothing her hair like a queen, adjusting her crown. It tried to breathe just once to steady myself. Dad, that's not. He cut me off with a wave of his hand. If you have a problem, there's the door. There it was. The line that didn't just bruise itself. Years of effort, every bill accurately handled, every crisis I solved, every moment I carried, what they'd brought, reduced to a dismissal so clean it didn't even sound angry. It sounded practiced, familiar, like something he'd been rehearsing for the day. I finally questioned the arrangement. My fork linked against the plate. No one moved to pick it up. I looked around the table, searching for even one face that looked conflicted, regretful, unsure, nothing. My father was rigid and my mother was small and Chloe was almost smiling like she'd been waiting for this hierarchy. Tobe spoken out loud. The room felt suddenly too tight, too loud, too. Every plant in the greenhouse had been, every leaf I'd missed trimmed, saved, pressed against the glass. Like an audience watching me realize my role wasn't daughter, wasn't partner, wasn't family. I was infrastructure, replaceable expected. The rain outside intensified, tapping harder against the windows. A rhythm I knew well from nights I worked long after everyone else went to bed. My father's words echoed with each strike. Work, sister, door. And something inside me, a part I'd kept quiet for years, finally stepped into clarity. Not from rage, though there was rage, but this wasn't Amos. It was the blueprint I'd built their lives on. I felt myself sit back, shoulders loosening, breath steadying. If this was the truth, then I didn't have to keep pretending we were something we weren't. I lifted my eyes to theirs. And that was the moment before I even stood up. When everything between us began to break, I didn't raise my voice. I didn't slam my hand on the table the way Chloe might have if so my own ruined her day. Instead, I felt a strange calm settle over me, like a storm pulling back, just far enough to make the air eerily still. I pushed my chair back, the legs scraping against hardwood, and every face at that table turned toward me, not out of concern, but out of annoyance, like I was interrupting their evening. Fine, I said, my voice level steady. I leave, and you can start paying your bill. For the first time all night, someone reacted. My father's jaw. My mother's eyes widened. Chloe froze with her glass halfway tower lips. They all understood what those words meant. They just never thought I'd have the spine to say them. I reached for the keyring hanging at my belt, heavy warm from my body heat filled with years of responsibility. I never asked Ed for keys to storage rooms, deliver VINs, inventory locks, cabinets of tools no one else knew how to use. I unclipped them, held the weight of them for a single heartbeat, then dropped them on the table. The sound wasn't loud, but it cut through the room like cold metal slicing fabric. No one moved to touch them. I walked toward the back door that opened to the greenhouse, the place where I'd spent more hours than in my own bed. I pushed it open, and a blast-off winter rain swept in, sharp and freezing, scattering napkins and blowing out to candles on the table. My mother gasped softly. My father cursed under his breath. Chloe whined that her hair was getting damp, but I didn't look back. I stepped into the storm, letting the rain soak straight through my coat and cross the path to my car. I didn't. Running would imply fear, and fear was the one thing I felt loosening its grip with every step. Inside the car, the world felt muted, softened by fogged windows and the steady hum of thin. I gripped the steering wheel, not to steady myself, but to anchor the realization that this was the last time I would ever carry their burdens. 40 minutes later, I unlocked the door to my studio apartment. Warm, quiet air greeted me, scented with potting soil, and the faint citrus of the lemon oil used on the shelves. My plants, my real plants, were thriving, green, lush, climbing the exposed brick in patterns that felt like freedom. I slipped off my wet coat and went straight to my desk. My laptop glowed to life, reflecting off leaves around it. My fingers moved without hesitation. Cancel recurring payments, revoke shared access, remove me authorization from anything tied to nursery. Each click was a breath I hadn't allowed myself to take in years. Then I opened the folder I'd been. Inside was the paperwork fourth account my grandmother had left for Amelia's future. $150. Gone. Drained years ago. The signaturian, the withdrawal form, was supposed to be mine. It wasn't. Linda's handwritten ways curled at the edges like she was trying to make even her deception look delicate. The betrayal hit with a coldness deeper than the rain. Not anger, clarity. They hadn't just used me. They'd stolen what my grandmother meant for my independence and funneled it into Chloe's lifestyle. I closed the folder gently, almost tenderly. The way you might close the eyes of someone you'd finally stopped hoping would wake up different. They wanted me to walk outdoor fine, but they had no idea what it meant when the person holding up the entire house finally let go. I didn't hear from them for almost a full day. The silence wasn't peaceful. It was expectant, like the pause before a glass hits the floor. I knew exactly how this would go. First, confusion, then irritation, then the familiar, until certainty that I would come crawling back because that was the role I'd been assigned since childhood. But on the morning of the second day, the messages, Gregory Zone 3 isn't missing. Get over here and fix it. Then, Another inventory is dropping. This is thousands soft dollars. Stop being dramatic. Then Chloe mom is crying. My audition is ruined because of this negative energy. Can you just handle it? Negative energy. That's what she called decades of I muted the notifications and focused on the design proposal in front of me. My hands were steady, my breathing even. They could rattle the greenhouse all they wanted. They no longer had access to the foundation. Benoon the buzzing stopped. For a moment, I allowed myself to imagine they understood. But entitlement doesn't it mutates? The next morning, as I stood in a meeting with senior designers reviewing structural load requirements for a rooftop garden, their receptionist's voice cut sharply through the intercom. Amelia, your parents are